So my name is Shelby Nilsson, and I am a primary therapist here at Elevations RTC and at The Approach as well. Today I'm going to be talking about interpersonal effectiveness, which is one of the pillars of DBT therapy. All right, so I'm going to start off by talking about some of the various skills that we teach our students. So a lot of our students arrive to us and they don't have a lot of the skills needed to be effective interpersonally. And I wanted to start out today talking about some of the barriers that get in the way of how they are able to interact with other people. And so some of the barriers that get in the way, the first one is just the idea of not having the skills. And so a lot of times we do get kids here who don't actually have the skills to be effective interpersonally in the day-to-day basis or with their peers, parents, or in other types of things, because for whatever reason, they may not have learned these skills. And so that's kind of the first barrier. Other things that do get in the way can be at times the worry thoughts that come up for these kids, the emotions, so like getting in the way of them being effective. So if a kid's falling into their emotional mind, or if they're over worrying about how other people perceive them, how they're seen, these various things can cause them to decide to not even use the skills they have. And sometimes another area that can get in the way is just deciding that they don't actually want to. We get a lot of kids who come in here who don't want to be in treatment, and for whatever reason, they decide they would rather be ineffective than they would actually want to use some of these skills. So at this point, we'll work with them. We'll try and engage with them to learn more skills as well and to practice the skills they have. And for whatever reason, sometimes the environment they've come from or the environment they're in currently can cause them to just make the decision not to use the skills they have to be effective. All right, so the next part of what I wanted to talk about today is some of the various skills that we actually use with our students. So I wanted to go over 4 basic skills that we actually share with the students and help them to learn to kind of have more effective interpersonal communication with people. So the first one we're going to talk about is the give skill. We'll talk about the dear man skill, the fast skill, and the think skill. So starting off with the give skill is on all these are going to be acronyms. In DBT, you'll get used to the acronyms and just kind of learning these various things to help kids remember, and honestly to help parents remember as well, because we teach these same things to parents. And so we want to help basically everyone. And frankly, I use a lot of these myself. So starting with the give skill is actually a skill that's meant to help maintain healthy relationships. So the acronym stands for being gentle, acting interested, validating, and then using an easy manner. And so it's really about the come across that we have with other people. And so if I can come up to somebody, if I can be have an easy manner and be gentle with them while I'm talking with them, also helping to validate things that they're having come up for them, it's going to put them in a much easier state of mind. It's going to help them to understand that I'm not a threatening person. I'm not being overly assertive. I'm being assertive to the proper level. And so these are kind of like that, how I want to be perceived by other type of skill. And so one of the very, very first things we teach the kids to kind of help them understand their own perception of self and others' perceptions of them. All right, the next skill I want to talk about today is the fast skill. So this skill is actually meant to help somebody maintain their self-respect after they're going through these interactions. It's really easy to get frustrated and get caught up in your thoughts when you're actually interpersonally interacting with people. And so this skill basically is how I want to feel about myself after the interaction. And so the fast skill stands for first being fair to yourself and others. A lot of the students we have come in here, they struggle with self-esteem, self-worth, things like that. And frankly, some of the parents as well that I work with. And so we're wanting to help them to learn that it's okay to be fair to themselves, be fair to both sides of the interaction. And so the next part, which goes very much hand in hand with this, is not to over apologize, because we definitely over apologize. And I do it as well as the students. And I have to constantly remind my students, hey, is that an effective thing you should apologize for? Because it's great to apologize when we need to. But sometimes they get caught up in this trap of apologizing for even just asking a question or coming up and having a need that they need met. And they say, I'm sorry that I have to ask you this, but, and that but right there is already anti-DBT. And so it's training them to be able to apologize effectively, not over apologize. The next part of this skill is to be able to stick to the values. And so we spend a lot of time helping students learn what their values are and very much encourage parents to figure out their values as well, either with their own personal therapist or in groups that they do as well, so that they can know and converse back and forth with this shared DBT language about the values that they're sticking to and that they consider important for themselves. And then finally, it's the idea of being truthful to yourself and to others. And so if I can be honest about my values, if I can be honest about how I should be and how I can be effective with myself and others, then I can be successful in using this skill. All right, so the last skill that I want to talk about today is called the think skill. And so the basic premise of this skill is we want to help people understand that sometimes we need to work on changing the way we think about situations. A lot of times in conflict, in intense situations, it's important to be able to look at things in a different way. And so the think acronym starts out by thinking about someone else's perspective. If I can see someone else's perspective, if I can then, in the second part of this is have empathy for that person, then I'm going to be able to effectively have this conversation with them. I'm going to know which skills I need to apply to this conversation. I'm going to know how this person needs to feel heard. And so the third part of this is going to be the interpretations. We naturally make interpretations for other people's behavior all the time. And a very important part of making the interpretations, actually like this skill, if you're writing it down, you would then write down all the interpretations you can think of. And a very important part of this interpretations is that we put down at least one benign interpretation. So if I'm having a struggle, somebody's coming at me and being aggressive with me, going beyond assertive and being aggressive, maybe part of that benign part of that is I'm noticing where they're at and I'm thinking to myself, they're probably having a bad day. This might not be about me. And more often than not, it's not actually going to be about me. So if I can notice like that benign thing that actually doesn't have to do with me, if I can set that aside so I'm not getting frustrated and I can see them where they're at, that's going to help them to calm down a little bit, realize that I'm not being aggressive back to them, and it's going to help them to be more effective in the way they talk with me. And the next part of this is to actually see how they are trying to address the issue. Because if they're talking with me, if somebody has a conflict, they are trying to actually address the issue. They might be being aggressive or whatever part of that is coming out, and they are trying to actually address the issue. And so the last part of the think skill is actually to use kindness. And so if I can be kind to somebody who's coming at me aggressively or whatever conflict's coming up, it's automatically going to give them permission to be kind as well. It's going to change the entire dynamic of the interpersonal interaction. And so to wrap up that skill and then all the other skills we've talked about is my encouragement to all of you guys is to talk with your therapist about how your student is doing learning these skills. Ask yourself and take an inventory of yourself of how you're actually learning these skills for yourself, and then notice how they're coming out in your interpersonal interactions with people throughout the next week. And if you need to follow up with these with your own therapist, or like I said before, with your student's therapist as well, we're always going to be more than happy to have these discussions with you.